Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Huda Beauty Remastered Rose Gold palette and comparing it to the original Rose Gold palette. This one came out in the summer of 2016. This one just dropped very recently. I think it was May 24th? Somewhere around there, give or take a couple of days. Upon their release, both palettes retailed for $85 and they were exclusive to Sephora and the Huda Beauty website. Both of them contain 18 shadows and both of them have obviously a rose gold theme going on. There are definitely similarities between this, but this definitely has been remastered. It does not have the same texture, particularly in the shimmer shadows, as this one does. Before we go any further with the review, I did want to just say a quick thank you to my friend Erin for lending me her original rose gold palette. I did buy this one myself, but I really did want to compare it to the original, and she was kind enough to lend it to me. So Erin, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Also, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there. The original palette came out in August of 2016. In August of 2017, Huda Beauty announced that they were going to be discontinuing that palette. Because people didn't think they could get their hands on it anymore, they ran off and bought it before it was discontinued and taken off the shelves. There was no discount in price, it was still $85. Keeping in mind that that took place in August of 2017, here we are, May 2018, and a fully remastered version has been released. I'm going to go ahead and guess that this was likely in the works when they announced the discontinuation of this one. I don't think that a completely remastered 18-pan palette would come about spur of the moment. So in my opinion, it's kind of shady. And frankly, it's kind of shitty. It's insulting to consumers. People act on FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure a lot of people fall into it as well. And marketers and brands know this. So when they say that this exclusive palette, which as far as I recall was not marketed as being limited edition, but as soon as they announced, you know what, we're going to discontinue it, it's going to be coming off shelves, get it while you can, people are going to go and get it while they can, particularly because of the hype that surrounded this palette at the time that it was released. So then this one drops, and it's only been 2 years since this one came out. To fully remaster something only 2 years later, in my opinion, kind of suggests that they knew all along that there might be something lacking in this one. I don't like to throw shade, I don't like to speculate. Obviously, I wasn't in the boardroom, I don't know any of this stuff, but it's an awfully quick turnaround time. And I mean, I was at Sephora just before, like the weekend before this released. It released on a Tuesday, I think it was the 24th. Doesn't matter. It released on the Tuesday. I was in Sephora on the Saturday, and they still had this one on the shelf, and it was still $85. If you're not following brands on Twitter or Instagram, if you're not quote-unquote in the know, you would see it back on the shelf and be like, holy shit, it's back. Let's grab that. Not knowing that 4 days later, a fully remastered one was coming out. And I understand selling the products, like if they still have back stock of this, go ahead and sell it. But put it on sale and maybe put a sign beside it saying, you know, remastered one arriving soon or whatever, put the date on it. Just, I think it would just show integrity if the brand instructed Sephora to do that, you know what I mean? So that consumers know, and then they can make the informed decision whether or not they want to maybe spend $20-30 less on this one or wait a little bit, spend the full price and get the remastered one. Those are just my thoughts on it. As it stands, I did buy this. Like I said, this one was lent to me, so I haven't double purchased. I'm not that fancy, but those are my 2 cents. I think it was bad behavior, and I don't think it was handled as well as it could have been. So before we get to what's on the inside, let's take a look at what's on the outside and compare those. I mean, it's very obvious. There is a marked improvement in the packaging with the new release. With the original, it is frankly cheap packaging, if I can say that. Like, it's just got this little plastic case here. It does have a magnetic closure. It is rather sturdy in that regard, and it's this nice hard sort of cardboard outer packaging here. Nothing fancy on the inside, but the shade names are printed on there, which I do appreciate. But it really, for being an $85 palette, there's nothing fancy about this. And I think when you're charging that much, yes, you're getting 18 shadows in here, but kick it up a little bit. Just add a little bit of visual interest to this. Fast forward to 2018, now we have beautiful outer packaging. It's got this like iridescent foiled portion to it, so her makeup looks super fancy. Same kind of idea, but this has like a bit more heft to it, likely because it now does include the mirror. If you just look at this side, it looks the same as it did before in terms of the hard cardboard packaging. Another point is that this one folds all the way back, which I really like because then I can just keep it in my hand. I don't have to worry about the flap getting in my way or anything like that. Whereas with this one, that's as far back as it went. So if you're using it, yeah, you've got to hold it. It's not a huge deal, but it's just slightly inconvenient to have to hold it that way rather than just being able to solidly hold it all the way around the packaging. The actual dimensions are the same, so they're the same width as each other, same height, same length, all that kind of thing. So you haven't got any additional bulk to the palette than you did aside from just the mirror. Like, I can feel that this one is a little bit heavier than this. And again, that's just because there's a mirror in there. So now let's take a look at the shadows. First of all, this was the original Rose Gold. So you can see these shadows up here, they almost look like pressed glitters, although that's not exactly what they are. They are like a foiled shadow, but they're quite chunky, and I do know that people had some complaints about working with them, that they were difficult to apply. And then again, you have all these mattes down here. Taking a look, well, there's, okay, I shouldn't say all these mattes. This one is a shimmer shadow, as is this one as well. And then we take a look at the new one here. Again, this bottom row is largely unchanged. It's all mattes. And then there's a good number of mattes here before we get into the shimmer shadows here, and then across the top as well. You can see by looking at it there that there's no more of that chunky shadow. These look a lot smoother and a lot nicer in terms of their texture. There have been some replacements, so this is not an exact dupe in terms of color selection as the original one is, aside from maybe that bottom row. It's kind of funny because the top two rows, they've changed the names or they've changed where the shadow is in terms of its layout in the palette, but the bottom one, it's kind of like they were like, well, fuck it, I give up. Because they have all the same names, they're all basically the same color, and they're all laid out in the exact same way. So they spent a lot of time remastering the top two rows, and the bottom one, they're like, yeah, it's good enough. So let's let the swatches speak for themselves on that. So first up is Dubai. This one is from the Remastered, and this one is from the original palette. Next up is Fling. So again, the first swatch is going to be from the new palette, and the second one from the original. I haven't primed my arm, just because I want to show you exactly how they perform out of the pan. There is a very slight color difference in these. This one's just a little bit richer of a cranberry, whereas this one leans a little bit more red undertoned. Next up is 24K. I just want to show on the fingers. So this is the Remastered, this is the original. And I think that is kind of self-evident in terms of the difference in the texture of the shadows. You can see just how much more chunky the original one was. Again, that's the new palette, and that's the original. So they are both beautiful once they're applied. However, this one just needs a little bit more work and a little bit more effort to get it to apply smoothly. Again, you can see that difference in texture with the shade Rose Gold. This is the original, this is the remastered palette. In looking at them up close, the new remastered one looks slightly more duochromatic than the original did. So the next shade is Trust Fund. So there is Trust Fund. Again, the colors look very similar. However, when I look really closely at the original one, it looks almost flaky on the skin. Like, it looks like it wouldn't have the longevity to last all day. And I just want to circle back to that very first shade as well, Dubai. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up or not. This one doesn't seem to have it, but this one has little tiny pink micro glitters in it. For the last shadow on the top row, they're different from each other. So in the new palette, it is called Pink Diamond, and in the original, it is Angelic, and they do not look to be dupes of each other at all. It doesn't look like they were even trying for it. So, okay, let's go over here. So this is Pink Diamond, and then this one is Angelic. So there is no direct replacement for Angelic in the new palette. And this is a new shade, Pink Diamond, and I freaking love it. It's beautiful. But I also really like this one too. I think they should have kept this one. More on that later. So what I do want to show though, at the risk of it falling everywhere. So this, damn it. So this is the original palette. You can see from just doing those finger swatches just how much has crumbled away in the pan. And there is a little bit of that in the new palette, but not nearly to the same extent. These top shadows are quite soft. Like you can see there's a bit of crumbling there. That's what I have on my lids today. So you do have to be gentle with them when you go in with them with the brush, but they are far more durable than the formula in the original palette. So first up from the remastered palette is Risque. And then the closest counterpart to it is Bossy. Next up, this is Dollface from the remastered, and Flamingo from the original. And with these two, I can feel a significant difference between them. Dollface it's almost gritty. It's so dry, not Dollface, sorry. Flamingo from the original is almost gritty by comparison to the new formula. It's just so dry, and it doesn't have the same opaque pigmentation as the new formula does. Then we have Demure from the new palette, and Shy from the old. And this one isn't nearly as dry as the pink one is. You can see there's a bit of a difference in terms of the color there. Personally, I actually prefer the color from Shy rather than the one Demure. It just has a bit more pink, whereas this one's more peachy. I just think that this one works better with the overall shade selection. It's not a huge deal because either way I would just use either one of them as a transition shade, but I don't know why they would have changed the color on that one. Then we have Blessed, or excuse me, hashtag Blessed. So again, new versus old. Okay, then we have Moon Dust. So this is the new formula, which is supposed to be like a crushed pearl. And then this is the old one. See, this one's a bit more vibrant, the new one. The last one in this row, they're different shadows again. So this is Bubbly from the new palette, and then this is Bay from the old palette, which has been removed. Apples to oranges, they're completely different things. I will say with Bubbly, it finger swatches beautifully. Like, it feels creamy, it feels almost wet. However, I have a hell of a time picking it up with the brush. Having just done the finger swatch on it, I think I may have sort of got through that top level, like the surface level of it, so it may be easier now. Let's just... Yeah, much better. So before, when I was using the brush with this shadow here, it just would not adhere to the brush at all. But having disturbed that top layer now with my finger, when I go in with the brush, it is applying as I had wanted it to from the get-go. Oh God, moisturize your elbows, Kara. Now because the bottom row is basically the same, I'm just going to apply them off camera and then show them to you so we can see the side-by-side comparison. And if any of them feel different than the other, or drier, or better, or worse, or whatever, I'll let you know. But just for the sake of time, that's what I'm going to do. The cats are having a tiff just outside my door. Okay. Here are all the matte shadows here. So, first up we have Black Truffle. So these two are from the new palette, these two are from the original. The shorter swatch is done with MAC Fix Plus on it, and then these two are dry. And you can see that the one from the original palette is just, it's more intense than the new one. Having said that, this one I didn't have a problem applying it. I didn't have any frustrations with it. I have filmed this look and it'll be part of a 3 looks 1 palette video coming up. But I am kind of surprised at sort of how lackluster that black is, especially compared to the original formulation of it. Next up is Suede, and this remastered formula does perform much nicer than the other. There's no patchiness to it. It's fully opaque with one swipe down, whereas this one you can see those patches in there. Same goes for the next one, which is Cocoa. You can see the skipping that happened over here. The shades are a little bit different here, and I have to say I really like the richness of the new formulation. It's more of a deep red brown, whereas this one's more just a brown, I guess. I don't know. But I like this tone a lot better. Next up is Man Eater, and again you can see that this one just has a bit more richness to it. There's more pigmentation to it, and this one just leaves me wanting a little bit more. Next over here is Henna, and again this one has a bit more of a stronger reddish undertone than the other one does. They both seem to perform fairly equally, although this one's just a little bit stronger. And then finally is Sandalwood, and again there's some opacity issues with the old formula that the new one has figured out. So because all of, like, from here over, the new formulation is so much better, I'm frankly surprised and kind of mystified as to why the black isn't performing as well as the original formula. 17 minutes of footage left on the memory card and 21% battery. No pressure. So having done the swatches and having played with the palettes for the last pretty much week, I have done some looks with this, although I didn't film them. It was really just that I could speak sort of intelligently about both palettes and really put them to the test. I prefer this one. I really, really do. This one's just trickier to work with. The mattes aren't terrible. They do blend fairly nicely. In my opinion, this is not an $85 palette. It isn't. They made a solid attempt. However, I'm not surprised that they have taken it back to the drawing board and remastered it. I'm surprised at how quickly they did it, but I've already said my 2 cents on that. We're going to move along. My complaint with this palette really lies in this row here, the metallic foiled shadows. They're flaky, they're crumbly. Yes, the finger swatches look really nice, but they don't have the same longevity as the new ones do, and they're just not as smooth on the eye. This one, the mattes, they almost blend themselves. Like, they really are very nice to work with. No patchy portions, nothing that gets really stubborn and won't blend out. Even the black blends very nicely. And so I'm not overly upset that it's not as like true stark black as in the original formula, because you can build it up and it's really not a big deal. And frankly, I think it might make it a little bit easier to work with. But where this palette really knocks it out of the park is with those shimmer shadows. They are beautiful. In terms of the shadows that have been removed from here, so there's Bay and then Angelic here have been taken out. I don't mind losing Bay, I really don't. It's just a matte cream shadow. I have that in a multitude of other palettes, so that doesn't bother me. I think Angelic was a very pretty shade. I think it's got that nice pinky gold shift to it that it is really beautiful and could very well stand to be in the new palette. Where I think they may have removed one is between these two here, so Moondust and Bubbly. In the pan, they look quite similar. They are different. There's different undertones to them. So this one's more of a gold. This one has a little bit more like a pink undertone. But applied and blended out, they're going to look quite similar. So I think we could have stand to lose Bubbly and put Angelic in here instead. And it just would have added just that much more versatility to the palette. I think it would have been a more unique shade than two slightly different champagne shades. The three mattes on this row here that they changed, like I said, I preferred the color Shy over Demure, but I do like these two better. So Doll Face is certainly more rich in tone. It's got a little bit more deepness to it, and I think that just helps to make it look less frilly, and I really like it. I also really like Risque versus Bossy. Bossy was more of a maroon shade, whereas this plays in a lot nicer with the pinks that are going on here. So final thoughts. If you have this one, I don't think you necessarily need to run out and grab this one. If you are interested in either of these palettes and you want to know which one I would recommend over the other, I would say go for the Remastered. The shadows are just, like I said, easier to work with, and you're really not missing out on anything in here that was in here. And there you have it. That's about as thorough of a comparison as I can do. As I said, I am going to do a 3 looks 1 palette video, or maybe a 2 look 1 palette or a 4 look 1 palette. It's going to be a multiple looks with 1 palette kind of video, and I'm not going to give any promises as to when that's going to be up, but I have filmed this look at any rate, so we've got to start going on. So, what are your thoughts? Would you boycott it because of the behavior of the brand? Are you interested in it? Do you have the old one? Do you plan on getting the new one? Just leave some comments down below. Let's talk about it. And yeah. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video, and I thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I'll see you in my next one. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.